Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on Turning a Moment into a Movement. I am J Love, and I represent the Justice for Gerard Movement. If you watch us every week, we come here every Friday, normally at 6 p.m., but we come in today at 7, no worries. But we come here every Friday to talk about wrongful convictions and injustice. Gerard is my son who was wrongfully convicted of a crime he didn't do, innocent, and he went to prison for that crime. He served 2 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections for that crime he didn't do. And once he returned home, he died a year later. So because of that journey with him and all the people I met on the journey, those who family members and friends and loved ones who had someone wrongfully convicted, we created this platform called Turning a Moment into a Movement. So thank you for joining us. I wanted to give you guys our mission statement. Our mission is to bring awareness to wrongful convictions of Gerard, Haycraft, and all others who are wrongly convicted, over sentenced, mentally ill, medically frail in our community. To inspire, organize, and educate all communities about the needs to disrupt systems, policies, and patterns to the criminal legal system that leads to wrongful convictions. So that's the reason why we're here every Friday, to educate and to motivate and to inspire. So today I see Revity hasn't popped in yet, so we're gonna go straight on to Attorney Mack. Hey, Attorney Mack.
Well, hello, J Love, my leader. Much love to you all the time and all the time. So good to see you again, J Love. And an absolute blessing to be here with you. And I just want to thank you again, J Love, publicly for being a woman of God that you are, because you have opened up and created a platform where so many people are helped and encouraged. So many people. So I want to thank you for that. And I want everybody to know my name is Dr. Hugo J. Mack, one of the only attorneys in the state of Michigan who is not going to parachute from heaven to be with you today, but came up from hell through the power of God in Jesus Christ to be with you. And a proud participant in affirmative action, by the way. Let's get that out the way right now. Proud participant in affirmative action. Glad to have been part of it. Like Reverend Al Sharpton said, affirmative action didn't write my resume, but it made somebody read it. So that's right. That's right. Proud to have been part of it. Proud to have been acknowledged as a person who had a right to be there, but who came from historically a class of people who've been discriminated against. How dare you talk about merit, Clarence Thomas? J Love. I just got to say this. I spent 8 hours researching Clarence Thomas. Well, I got a bunch of stuff to tell y'all, but I got to wait for the right time, my leader, the right time. But anyway. So here we are right now. Here we are right here and now. And, my practice is based on the wrongfully convicted, the marginalized. Unfortunately, a lot of my practice are women that have been in abusive domestic violence relationships, women that have been let through the safety net. And J Love, the headlines only last for so long, okay? Something can make the news for a minute, and the news cycle is 24 hours. 24 hours, they'd be on something totally different. But the women that I represent, and some men, but mostly women, they don't have a bunch of social services. They don't have these cause celebrate groups. This week it's, let's do something for the disadvantaged minority women. Next week it'll be let's save the whales. Okay. So, these are people that continually fall through the cracks, J Love, and they don't have people other than maybe a handful of us, and I'm not patting myself on the back, a handful of us willing to help them in court, willing to help them with transportation, with housing. A lot of these women have kids. They're struggling. They're raising kids by themselves. Daddy want to be a Don want to be whatever, who think he's judging his manhood by how many children he fathers. Wrong. Okay. So, that's what I do, J Love, and I say it with pride. A lot of my clients don't drive fancy cars over bridges. They live in cardboard boxes under bridges. I'm doing some work with veterans now. You'd be amazed how many veterans, J Love, are struggling, and the suicide rate amongst veterans, most people just don't believe it. They don't believe it, but it's true. And then people becoming dependent on medications and unfortunately self-medicating. I deal with a lot of that, which can lead to police involvement, and that starts that whole cycle again. Police are not trained to be therapists or counselors or de-escalation experts. They're trained to do one fundamental thing: enforce the law, and that's it. So, they can talk about that all they want. They can window dress all they want, but they're not trained for that. They're not trained for that. And when they're confronted by somebody who they think has a weapon, their default is to shoot. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is to shoot. So, J Love, I'm dealing with those sorts of things, but I'm proud to be here to take part, J Love, because just like Mordecai told, Esther, maybe you're born for a time such as this, So that's where we're at. So proud to be here, proud to be a member of the Justice for Gerard movement, still relishing in the love gathering, all the photographs we took. And that was just wonderful, J Love. It was wonderful.
It was wonderful. I'm glad you brought that up, Attorney Matt, because I want to show people, we talked about it a little bit last week, but these pictures that were made in honor of Gerard and myself, by two different artists that are incarcerated.
Wow.
But they were so beautiful. These pictures right here really don't do them justice, but they were so beautiful. I'm so grateful for these. It was just a wonderful event, Attorney Mack.
And it was. And so thank you for letting me participate in it, J Love. So that's what we're about, J Love, and that's where we're at.
Right.
Now, having said that, J Love.
Okay.
Here we go. If you find yourself on Trouble Boulevard, push, pull, drag, tow that hoopity to Mack Street. And when you're there, park in my virtual underground garage and dial the Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. Because as all Mr. and Miss America, all ships at seas know by now, hmaclaw.com is your hookup. hmaclaw.com is your hookup. hmaclaw.com is your hookup. And J Love, in order to give opportunity to people who want to write this information down, excuse me, Roger and Zap, while we do the Boogaloo. And introducing to some and reintroducing to others, our newest Jan, the Janus. And remembering Reverend Tia, always the Batman. Haven't forgot you, Tia. We're going to finish out. What we call the German slide. And reprising the Batman one time on the end. And there we are, J Love. Now, J Love, I want you to understand one thing about me, J Love. People have tried the rest, J Love. Time for them to come to the best. Now, if you don't want to win outside my office, please don't come in. Stay outside with the rest, being legally constipated and not getting no help. You see, this is what we're talking about, J Love. We're talking about fundamental freedom and justice. Now, J Love, I know for all you haters out there, all you people writing J Love, putting a note on that woman's car, stopping that woman in the parking lot, all that. I know who y'all are. Want her to kick me off the show. Well, J Love, I'm going to say right now, like I've always said to the haters, in the words of my late cousin Bernie, I ain't scared of none of y'all. None of y'all. You understand? And I mean that, J Love. But you know what, J Love? I noticed one thing. Mm-hmm. Ever since I've been on the show, these people coming up smiling in my face, these haters, all the time wanting to take my place. Damn backstabbers. And J Love, I noticed one thing. Ever since I've been on this show, I keep getting all these visits from my so-called friends. Let me tell you what they're doing, J Love. They be coming to my house again and again and again and again. And J Love, what's so bad of it? One of them got so bold. I know he's trying to get my woman, J Love. He's trying to get my woman. J Love, I'll even be home and he still keep on coming, J Love. Now, I want you to answer me this question, J Love. What him and my woman got to talk about in private, J Love? What they got to talk about in private? See, so I mean, I'm telling you, look, J Love, I'm telling you right now. I don't want to hurt nobody, but I need to be on the right track, J Love. I need to take some of these damn knives out my back. And see, so that's what I'm dealing with, J Love, out here in the struggle. But you know, J Love, I just want to plead my cause to you, because if for some reason the haters try to get to you, try to wear you down to kick me off the show, I can just plead the words of the great Otis Redding. You see, J Love, for you to kick me off the show means you become tired, J Love. You become tired of me and you want to be free. But J Love, please understand something. You, Reverend Tia, Trische, and the crowd, y'all become a habit, J Love. Y'all become a habit to me. J Love, please. I've been loving y'all far too long to stop now, J Love. Please, J Love, don't make me stop now. And J Love, if you still thinking about the unthinkable, I just speak the words of the great Morris Day. You know, J Love, ain't nothing worse than rejection. Rather than kick me off the show, I'd feel a little better if you just slapped my face. So you see, so I'm pleading my cause to you, J Love, not to yield to the haters. And I know, J Love, I know. They ask you, J Love, is that crazy lawyer for real? He be meaning all that stuff. He just too far out there, J Love. He just too far there. Do he really be endorsing that stuff? I got a message for y'all. You damn straight I do. I endorse it. Every word of it. So, you know, J Love, I want you to know one thing. This endorsement is coming from my heart, and it's brought to you by Dr. Hugo J. Mack, Esquire, the one true king of Russia, Scotland, and Lower Harlem. And with that, J Love, I say, I love y'all.
Thanks, Attorney Mack.
I love you, J Love. I love you.
Love you too. I see Dwayne has made it in. Hi, Dwayne.
My brother.
Hey.
Hey, right. Dwayne.
How y'all doing? Hear me?
Good, great. How about yourself?
Ooh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can't
hear me.
We hear you fine.
Okay, yes. Okay. How you doing? Everybody all right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
Everybody is great. So introduce
Ooh,
yourself to everybody. You made it though. Tell everyone who you are, Dwayne.
Dwayne Brooks, wrongfully incarcerated for 35 years before the evidence came out, and I was released in April 25th. So it's been 2.5 months now since I've been out, and I've been on your show I don't know how many times, and we just trying to spread awareness, get the people to understand what's going on in this country.
Yes.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Dwayne, for being here. We love you, and we're so grateful that you have decided to be with us on Fridays.
I'm honored to be here.
Yes.
I gotta get my own setup.
Yeah.
I have to borrow somebody's setup every week.
We gotta,
I hear you.
Yeah. We're gonna have to get you set up.
Yeah, I gotta get my own setup.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that you're here. We have another attorney with us today. And you guys, he has been here a few times before. He is a former police officer. Now he's an attorney, an awesome attorney, and author of the book called "You See a Hero, I See a Human Being." I want you guys to put your hands together for Attorney David Robinson. Hi, Attorney Robinson.
Hey, Jay, love, how are you?
I'm great.
Thank you for another invitation to be with you today. Hello, Hugo, how you doing, brother? And Dwayne Brooks, meeting you for the first time. It is my absolute pleasure. Yeah, I've been doing this stuff for about as a lawyer 37 years. I was a cop for 13 years. Saw a lot of bad things, and so I thought that everything that I saw that was bad during those 13 years, I would try to do my best to find justice, in every corner of the city of Detroit and other municipalities. I've done so. I've had a wonderful career. I know that one of the things that excites me is this whole concept of justice, and how justice in and of itself is a very elusive sort of thing. In the course of all these years and the cases that I've had, hundreds of cases, justice really sort of ekes out. Uh, my cases don't turn on big things. There's no such thing as a smoking gun or teeny weeny pea shooters, I say, but those pea shooters make the difference between a lie and the truth. And, as Proverbs says, when justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. And that's what I have devoted my life to, is bringing terror to evildoers. I love what I do, and I will continue to do it until my last breath. So, again, thank you for having me. I look forward to this show and this podcast.
Yes.
And I
Thank
should
you.
indicate to you, my son out in California, he's going to put together a podcast that is going to go over the number of cases that I've had over these 37 years. It's called the Blue Code Confidential Podcast. It's going to be debuting in a couple of weeks, and I will let you guys know about that. So
Yes.
tune in. It's going to be pretty.
Yes. Oh, I look forward to that.
Amen.
Make sure you send us a link so we can make sure we promote it too
I
on
definitely
here as well. Yes, thank you. And the lady of the hour is here. Greetings, Diane.
Hello, how are you, Jay? And
How are
Attorney
you?
Robinson, who I remember from way back, and everyone
Hey,
else, Attorney Mack, and as well the other participant. I forgot your name, sorry.
It's Dwayne Brooks.
Okay, right.
AKA Superman.
Okay.
Dwayne Brooks from New York.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm so glad that you're here, Diane, because one of your stories that came out last month, I think it was last month, it really caught my eyes, and I was like, I got to get Miss Diane on here so we can talk about this story. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to say also, before we get started, hello to all the people on YouTube and Twitter that's watching. I see Paula Kinzu is in the house today, and Beulah Walker and Pam White and Yolanda Nelson, Andre Nelson's sister. So thank you guys. So Diane, tell us about this case. Who is Willie Merriweather? I have a picture of him.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, that's Willie Merriweather. He's been in prison in the Michigan Department of Corrections since, wait a minute, let me get my years straight. Sometimes I get decades mixed up. Since 1987 for first-degree murder. And this was a case that involved police officers who also framed other people who have since been exonerated, including Danny Burton and Dwight Love, who was a notorious, was a famous case back in the end of the 90s, Dwight Love and his attorney, Sarah Hunter, that first exposed the use of miscellaneous files by the Detroit police, where they hid all sorts of information they didn't want the prosecution to have, or the prosecution they didn't want the defense to have. And that was the first time that had been exposed. But in Willie's case, this situation involved several cops, including, and you see up in the picture here,
Mm-hmm.
Willie that's a picture of him when he was young, when he was arrested. It's a picture from the Detroit Free Press at the time. And Danny Burton, that's a young picture of him in the middle. And Dwight Love is on the left. At the bottom is the folks that framed them up. One is Gerald Stewart, who was a commander, a police commander over a large area in Detroit. He was involved in the frame up of Dwight Love, as well as Willie Merriweather. He was in charge of the case at the time. The other sergeant, the other person who is still alive now is Ronald Sanders on the right. And he was involved in beatings, not only of Willie Merriweather and his co-defendants, but of Danny Burton. There's been extensive stories done on Danny Burton's case, where in other newspapers that talk about what happened with Sergeant Sanders and co-defendants, well, with his witnesses in the case. So, and the one in the middle is Stowitz. That's just a generic picture because I couldn't find any actual pictures. Donald Stowitz. He's been involved along with David Pouch in crime lab frame-ups, basically. David Pouch was the one that, in the case of, and the guy's name slips my mind right now, but one of the exonerees, they switched the bullets in the case, and to match the bullets that were that belonged to his mother's gun, and they knowingly switched the bullets to convict him. So that's the story of the other people. Now, Willie Merriweather says, and he told me, he got in touch with me several years ago, actually. He's been sending me information about his case, his transcripts, and all sorts of other materials. And I finally had a chance to get to doing the story. I first ran into an advocate for him during the rally that we had outside, well, that families of prisoners, wrongly convicted prisoners, had June 4th, 2021 in front of the Frank Murphy Hall. And one of his advocates, who's featured in the story, came and spoke on his behalf. And at that point, I knew I'd have to do his story. So, but it took a while to gather all the information together. And I finally also was able to interview two of his co-defendants. What happened back in 1987, there was a killing in a drug house of three individuals in what appears to be a targeted hit. Two of them were women, and there was another man who was injured. And I'm trying to sort the stories out because lately I've been involved in a number of cases and I'm trying to keep them straight. But anyway, what happened, Gerald Stewart, who was in charge of, who was a commander, and and Ronald Sanders were in charge of the case. 7 co-defendants. The article that Jay just had up there from the Free Press that shows the 7 that talks about, 7 arrested on Detroit triple slaying. This was a time when the Detroit police were campaigning to convict as many people as they could because there was a lot of negative publicity going on about how many homicides they had solved. And rather than, take their time and correctly solve them, they were just out to get whoever they could get and to increase their numbers. And in the story that's covered, the Free Press talked about, there was an article in the Free Press that in the homicide closure rate through May 31st, 1987. The interesting thing about the Free Press article was that the chart in the article says cases were closed by arrest or ruling that the slaying was justifiable. Now, you don't close a case by arrest, even though that's how the police department sometimes does things, because the person still hasn't been tried. They haven't gone through the justice procedure and the appellate courts, all of that. But that's what they were doing. They were just running around. They didn't care if these arrests were legitimate, whether the people were guilty or not, when it came down to it. Now, what Willie told me and what's in the story is that after they were arrested, he was taken to the old 5th precinct and beaten on the behest of Ronald Sanders and other officers. He was seen by 2 of his other co-defendants. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired right now, but because I've been busy all day. But his other co-defendants included Mark McLeod and Scott Crump. And I interviewed them for the story. And they confirmed what Willie had been telling me all along, that the reason he's in prison is because he refused to testify against his co-defendants. He told them, look, you guys are young. He was older than them. And he could see that they were that they weren't going to get a fair trial, that the whole thing was just an issue of getting some numbers to say that they had a conviction or had convictions. And and they told me, and that was the reason that they were acquitted, because he wouldn't testify against them. And the reason that he was framed up was for that reason, that he wouldn't testify against them. And this was a deliberate action on the part of Gerald Stewart and Ronald Sanders. He's been in prison since 1987. His 2 co-defendants both confirmed his story to me. He'd always told me that, and I wasn't sure of the details, but when I got their story, when I interviewed them, that's true. That's what happened. And so he's been in prison all that time. The thing about that era in the 1980s and 90s, that was like the Ring of Snitches era, where it was exposed that so many people were being held in the Wayne County Jail that stayed there. They had a whole ring of snitches that was exposed in an article in Truth Out newspaper back in 2015. 20 more people that stayed up in the Wayne County Jail, could leave when they wanted to, could go out and have sex, go out and get fast food, do whatever they wanted to do, and had their convictions on other matters reduced or obliterated or never served time for them. And the one person involved in his case, the co-defendant that testified against all of them, Frederick Hammond, who's in the article there, his picture is next to Willie Merriweather's. He became one of those snitches. I don't know if when he started out, if this was his first effort of becoming a snitch, but that's what it was. He gave really comprehensive testimony that was obviously dictated by the police, because every aspect of the case was covered in what he said. The people that drove him there, the people that went in the house, the people that killed the people, each one had an individual role of those 7 co-defendants. And it was convenient because the cops were trying to wrap it up. And they also had bones to pick with some of the other defendants that had nothing to do with that particular case. But that's a typical process that police officers go through. Well, if he's not guilty of this, we know he's guilty of that. So we're going to get him. And they've continued to do that throughout the years. There's other cases where, in the case, for instance, of Darrell Ewing, whose case I've been covering, that he was supposedly a member of a gang, and he got framed up by Kim Worthy and the prosecutor's office because they knew he had some involvement. It wasn't a gang, but the way that they portray young Black men and women in the media and in the general thesis of the prosecutor's office is that they're all parts of gangs. All you got to do is have a few of them come together on the street and that's a gang. So that's what happened in his case. Now, I don't know. Maybe people would want to step in here a minute so I can go through more details of the case. But if there's other people that wanted to comment in the meantime, rather than.
I read about the case. I read your article, and then I was reading things online about it. And so I was reading part of about Willie Merriweather was talking about how the beatings that he endured, and how he was saying about because he had been to prison before, he
Right.
was an easy target. You know, he can go back in. And so doing, you know, we have covered Danny Burton probably early on, because I remember him coming home in 2019. That was like probably around the time Gerard first left. I started paying attention to these exonerations, and he was one of the first ones because he was in cotton corrected
Guys are breaking up pretty bad
as well. However, I was reading his story today, and it seemed like during that era in Detroit, there was a lot of that going on.
Yes, it was rampant because I've covered other cases during that period, going back to the 70s, actually. The police department in Detroit has been profoundly corrupt for many decades. And a lot of that didn't come out really until the Coalition Against Police Brutality came out and had a public hearing in 1998, I think it was, that I worked with. And David knows, Attorney Robinson knows well about that. That was founded by the woman that he represented, Netta Grable, and the father of Lamar Grable, who were killed who their son Lamar was killed by Officer Eugene Brown, who had also killed two others in separate incidences that were not justified killings. But that's when it first came out. When Ron Scott and I from that coalition first went to talk to Brenda Scott on the city council about holding that hearing, she said, well, we don't have a problem with police in Detroit. You know, that's been since Coleman Young came in because he got rid of stress. Well, think again. That just went on. The police, they had more black cops, and they had more corrupt black cops as well as corrupt white cops. It was all, I mean, Attorney Robinson can probably address that, I would think, since he was in the police department for a while. So, but the situation that the young woman that's in the story here, that was a witness that was used against Danny Burton, there's a picture of her from the article on the Intercept, Clara Hill. She refused to testify finally against Burton and his two co-defendants after Sanders locked her in a closet and kept her there even after she urinated on herself. She was 14 years old at the time, and no adults were present except for the officers. This was a little girl, basically. And she would not testify against them, but the other witnesses that did in Danny Burton's case, they finally they recanted and told what really happened, similar situations with them. So, but it's now really, people think that was back then, but there's still a lot of situations going on with the Detroit police. One of the situations that I saw most prominently was with the case of Diana Jones, when she was killed by Detroit police back in 2010. And the job that the Detroit Police Department, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office did to try to vilify her family and cover up what they did, sent her father to prison for related or non-related killing a couple of days before that. But the trials I covered every case, every trial in that case of Diana Jones, the trials of the officer that killed her, Joseph Weekley, as well as the trials of her father and uncle. And it was just astonishing to see what the real truth was. If you go in Voice of Detroit and put Diana Jones in, you'll see the dozens of stories I did back then. So it was still going on, and they used jailhouse snitches against her father and uncle. Two jailhouse snitches. I confronted the one jailhouse snitch and did all sorts of stories on him after Jay Schlenkerman, a white guy from downriver. Anyway, I don't want to necessarily have to go into all that right now. I need to keep focused on Willie Merriweather. We are trying to get him publicity. His daughter is out there, and she's been supporting him. I had actually, it had slipped my mind about being on the show because I'd meant to call her to see if she wanted to come on with me. But we can do that at another time.
Yeah, we can get her on at another time.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Attorney Robinson.
You know, I was, as Diane says, I was a police officer during that period of time where homicide gained this reputation of being really, really top-notch investigators. It's kind of funny because if you remember in '84, that movie Beverly Hills Cop came out
Yeah.
with Eddie Murphy, and Gil Hill, of course, was in the movie. It was just sort of amazing how the whole personality of the homicide officers changed after the notoriety that the city got following that movie coming out. You saw homicide officers dressing differently than they had before, and a lot of their um, uh, dirty deeds were as a consequence of trying to pursue fame and fortune based on the reputation that Detroit had already had of being the murder capital of the world, and then it being highlighted internationally through the likes of Eddie Murphy in this movie, and again Gilbert Hill. So, you know, it was so many things again that as a police officer, and it was interesting because I was just a police officer. I wasn't a supervisor or anything like that. So things were not hidden uh, in front of things were kind of held out in the open, so to speak, with a lot of things that these police officers would do just to, violate constitutional rights. And it kind of like they were doing so with, evil and malicious intent, but cavalierly at the same time, damaging the uh, lives and livelihoods of so many people. I mean, sending people to jail for crimes that they did not commit. I mean, it became sort of like typical. Stories like with Eddie Joe Lloyd, who I represented,
Mhm.
who was arrested for a murder and a rape that he never committed. And one of the officers who was the investigator's name was Tom Gallon. Uh, Even before, I mean, again, my um, um, knowledge base, again, I think is heightened by the fact that I knew these guys as a police officer, and then I knew them as a lawyer going after the police department. So as I reflected back on the relationships that I had, all of those signs were there, of their dirty deeds, so to speak. But as a police officer, it went over my head. I didn't really uh, focus on it because I was part of the problem, frankly. But um, again, getting out and away from the police department, it was kind of like a convenience for me because, hell, I knew where the bones were buried. And when you speak, Diane, about Eugene Brown and his stuff. I mean, 9 shootings in 6 years as a
Mhm.
police officer, killing 3 people. That in and of itself, that statistic in and of itself was enough to make a police department, raise a red flag. But there was never ever, and there never have been, and to this day, there never are red flags raised. Cops get so many protections, through the police department itself, but also through, frankly, naive people that, just think that police officers don't do bad things until they see a video like we see of the police officer in Warren, in his unprovoked attack on the
Mhm.
young man in the jail registration room. So, this is a major major problem, and I don't think that society as a whole really understands the depths to which police officers get protection by the law and by judges, these courts and the
Mhm.
Supreme Court. This stuff, it's out of whack. It really is. And again, the average person does not realize what cops get away with. They literally get away with murder. You see it
Mhm.
over and over again. And the ones that, even on video, I mean, I submit to you that, you've heard this before, that with George Floyd, had that not been captured on video, Derek Chauvin would be working the afternoon
Mhm.
shift today, because remember, he wrote this report that put all the blame on George Floyd's poor health. All right. And that would have passed muster had it not been for the citizen who had the courage to videotape him, you
Mhm.
know. And the most damning thing is the fact that these guys know that they're being videotaped and they still do it. The Warren cop, he knew there were cameras in the lockup, but he still did it. So, I mean, that's some crazy stuff. And dig this, I bet dollars to donuts, if that hadn't have been captured on video, he'd have gotten away with that. He's still been working today. He wouldn't be, indicted and, with a federal
Mhm.
charge. So, I mean, Diane, your voice is an amazing voice. It really is, because you don't shortchange it. You don't cheat it. You tell it like it is. But the sad thing is, we have a society that would rather rebuke, the truth,
Mhm.
um, even in the context of these friggin' videos. The circuit courts and the federal circuit courts have gone to a new sort of way in which to regard what we call dispositive motions and evidence. They now are relying heavily on these videos. But even some of these conservative judges that have been appointed under the Trump administration
Mhm.
can look at those videos and still see it in favor of the police officers. That's the amazing thing. And this is what we are facing, again, as a black and brown community, when we are, facing, the criminal justice system, and where we're facing, a challenge trying to avenge, wrongs, in the hope that the Constitution is going to afford us some relief. People just don't realize it is so heavily weighted in the favor of police officers. It's shameful, is what it is.
Yeah. Tony Mack.
Well, I've been sitting here listening, to the two speakers, and it's almost as if they have lived my professional experience and I have lived theirs. you
Mhm.
know, um, in a metropolitan environment like Detroit or New York, these things can be exposed because you got people willing to expose them. But When you live in Camelot, aka Washtenaw County, it's a very closed-in community, even for black people, okay, who are tired of being victimized by crime to the extent that we will turn our back on an injustice because we think the person that's being unjustly treated is the one that broke into our house, the one that terrorized our sister, the one that sold drugs to our niece. And this is something that I've been dealing with for decades now.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I think that people who want equality and justice to understand is that black people are just another group of people. They're another group of people. African Americans have a unique experience in this country, but we are another group of people, and we are not immune from the vices of self-hate, of envy, of anger than anybody else. So I guess what I'm saying is, when you look at some of the most horrendous wrongs that have happened in Detroit, it's with black officers. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes,
unfortunately.
Yes, it is. And so it gets me back to my point of, I really, as I get older, question the effectiveness of this diversity inclusion thing, okay? You know, because I guess I'm seeing more and more now the ranks upon which you are recruiting from for this diversity inclusion in terms of police are people from the academy. And I don't see a big change in the culture of police. So, so the fact that you've got a black recruit, let's say, all right, happens to be black, they go through the same indoctrination and training as their white counterparts. And at the end of the day, it's not black versus white, it's blue versus the rest of us. Okay. That's been my experience. And I've had to excoriate black officers who had absolutely no problem standing up for injustice and covering up. Okay. And see, for me, the problem has been so much focus on, well, look at all the blacks that are in these higher positions, you know, blacks in the police department, look at the black sheriff, look black and what have you. But the culture hasn't changed. The culture hasn't changed. And if anybody doubts that, wasn't there a case in Memphis, Tennessee about 2, 3, 4 months ago where those black officers, I didn't see a white officer on the scene. If they showed up, it was later. They're the ones that killed that black guy. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. So, and that's in Memphis, Tennessee, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a man by the name of King that spoke about going to the mountaintop? You know, didn't he? Wasn't there a man by the name of King, you know, at Mason Temple, April 3rd, 1968, you know, talking about, I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. So when you look at what King stood for and what so many people fought for, and you see that there are blacks that are in the vanguard of some of these horrendous black instances, it really lets you know. I'm starting to wonder how much it really is about race, but more about class and culture.
Well, these black officers are trained the same way that the white officers are, and the training that these officers get is to use force first and ask questions later. Shoot first, ask questions later. Everybody they're trained to be to adopt a mindset that everybody is an enemy. It could be anybody, 85-year-old person, you know, driving some kind of truck, you know, 85-year-old lady driving a truck, she's still going to be presumed to be the person that could kill. That's how they're trained. And so when you see these traffic stops, like with Sandra Bland, with that police officer that stopped her, you know, there was so much fear in this dude because what is going through his brain, as he's approaching this car is this training video that he saw, where all of his trainers are telling him everybody is your enemy. You could get killed at any time. So a cop is hearing that over and over and over again. So how the hell is he supposed to approach somebody, with a sense of objectivity? That's out of the door. They are trained to get home. Okay. They forget about the oath. The oath is something that is kind of interesting because when I was a cop, I'm the one that said our code of ethics for the graduation. As important as the code of ethics is, though, that those words, okay, there it's an idealistic, set of paragraphs that should act as the guide. They're supposed to act as the guide. But guess what? Once you're out of the academy, you never have to worry about, the code of ethics anymore. It should be required that, at every beginning of every shift, because at roll call, remind the police officer of his or her code of ethics. That shit does not happen. One other thing that is so important, and it should be so obvious to police chiefs and police departments around the nation. Um, Cops get trained twice a year in the Detroit Police Department for qualifying for their weapons, right? When they come in the police department, they have to take a psychological evaluation, all right? But after that, despite all of these stories that you hear about the stresses that police officers, have to go through and all this stuff like that, there isn't any other psychological evaluations that take place after hiring. So, when you talk about somebody like Eugene Brown, who was, for all intents and purposes, he's a killer. He's a killer cop. Um, had there been, annual psychological evaluations, that were forced upon him, perhaps it would have come to light sooner and have avoided that he was a nutcase and avoided some of his deaths and some of those shootings. You know, let me tell you something. In that case, his cousin, and we never got to talk about. I'm sorry, we never got to call his cousin, who was one of the witnesses that I wanted to call, because Eugene Brown lived over on the east side.
Mm-hmm.
Talked to, because Arnetta Grable had found this guy. Maybe Diane, you knew about this guy. It
Yeah.
was his cousin that just had gotten out of the jail, and when he got out of jail, he went to Eugene's house on the east side, knocked on the door. Eugene Brown answered the door, and he was wearing a dickie that had DPD on it. And quite literally, cousin asked Eugene, "Hey, I didn't know you were still working for the Detroit Police Department." And Eugene Brown said, "Yes, I still am. That's the only job that you can kill a nigger and get
Yeah.
away with." The judge
Mhm.
wouldn't let us call him as a witness. But again, that was the sickness of this dude, and he got away with it in the trial. I mean, the evidence, if you recall, he was hailed a hero because he survived two so-called bullets, that were shot by Lamar Grable. And he was hailed a hero. The board of review was comprised back then of 3 executive officers. Um, and Diane, you probably saw the autopsy photos of Lamar Grable with the
Mhm.
contact shots to his neck, and then there was one to the back of the arm. These are contact shots, and the contact shots are where the barrel of the gun is literally pressed against the skin, so that the stippling creates a pattern, literally, of the barrel itself.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you got three executive officers for the Detroit Police Department. They called it a justified shooting, despite the fact
Mm-hmm.
that none of those contact shots were justified or accounted for in the report that the lawyer for the union wrote for Eugene Brown. I mean, that's how, pardon the expression, fucked up that whole situation was. So to this day, he has gotten away with, murder. At the trial, and if you remember, I asked him after he described what happened, I gave him an alternative theory
Mm-hmm.
that rather than Eugene Brown and him standing up facing each other and doing the struggle, is it possible that you were down on one knee, punitively shooting, him in the neck? And that son of a bitch said, yes, it's possible. That was enough to have had the prosecutor back then. And I forget who the prosecutor was back then, but it wasn't Kim Worthy. But that was enough to have gotten him, I think, charged in Lamar Grayble's death.
I don't think, excuse me, Attorney Robinson, that never happened, I don't believe. Sometimes I know it's so long ago, but he was never charged.
I know he was never charged. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
I'm
I
saying
see.
that
Oh,
it
you're
was
saying it was if enough to have
it
him
was
charged.
enough of an admission
I'm sorry, I
to
misunderstood.
had him charged for Lamar's death, but it never happened. So
Mhm.
that is a kind of typical set of facts. Again, there wasn't any video or anything like that back then. No video. That was 1994, 1996, whatever it was. No such thing as video. So, you know, um, the same thing that he got away with then, it's the same thing that these dudes are getting away with
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
How many shootings have there been today that have not been captured on video? Nobody knows about those. You're not going to hear
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
You only hear about the ones on video now. All right, and you used to not hear about any of them because there was the cops word. Cops word goes a hell of a long way. It really does. So I mean, it's a fucked up set of circumstances. That's all I can say. In the Supreme Court, with these bastards in the Supreme Court, you know, um, things
You
don't
Can
get
know,
I?
better.
I'm sorry.
oh, when you look at the situation here in Wayne County and Detroit, but in terms of what the police get away with and prosecutors, actually, it's been atrocious under Kim Worthy. Now, we went, as David recalls, because he's in the photo I took of all the members of the families of the people that were killed by Eugene Brown, uh, that went to the prosecutor's office after Kim Worthy took office. There was a report, as David knows about all of this because he was key to central to everything. But I had submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the to the Detroit Police Department to get information on the case of Lamar Grable. And they denied that Freedom of Information Act request. What the information we wanted was the special report that was done by Walter Shoulders after it started to be questioned about what was going on with Eugene Brown and two other commanders. And they recommended in that report that he should be charged. Now, Benny Napoleon was the police chief at the time, and he ditched that report. He kept it secret. He said that that was an internal report that they didn't have to disclose, that it was part of the personnel file, etc. We took that, the Michigan Citizen and I took that, and Arnetta and David and everybody else that was fighting what was happening, took that all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court. And as a result of that, they did disclose the Shoulders report. But so we took that to Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy's office. I believe it was, I can't remember the years now, 2005 maybe. It was not long after she took office. And Arnetta went up to talk to her because we were demanding that they bring charges after we found out what was in the report. And they told Arnetta, as I recall, that, well, we've had that report all along. We're not bringing any charges. And after that, not one killing by police in Detroit. And there were dozens of them that I covered for the Michigan Citizen, as well as the Voice of Detroit. Dozens of them where families campaigned to get the cops in the cases charged. Not one would Kim Worthy bring any charges. She's famous for that Buds and Never situation because she was the assistant prosecutor at trial and she was all on TV. And, you know, this gorgeous young woman, she had this long flowing hair back then, and she became a star as a result of that trial, the Buds and Nevers that killed Malice Green. Since that time, she has never charged a Detroit police officer with killing anybody. Even in the case of Joseph Weekly, whose gun killed Diana Jones, she did not bring the charges against him. That was done by Timothy Kenny, the chief judge, and a special grand jury. She brought the charges against Ayanna Jones's father and uncle. And she's had an undeserved reputation for all this time. And now when I do the stories on wrongful convictions, the role of the prosecutor's office in those wrongful convictions is shameful. There's never, none of the cops, they talk about the conviction integrity unit that has supposedly been able to get something like 35 people exonerated out of Wayne County. But that 35 people out of probably thousands of people that remain in prison because of what the prosecutors involved in those cases, the police involved in those cases, of the cases where people got exonerated, like Danny Burton. Nothing has ever happened to them. They've never been held accountable. They took people's lives. They not only, took people's lives by killing them, they took people's lives by sending them to prison for the rest of their lives. And there's thousands still in there. I know Scott Lewis, who's a private detective now. He used to be a TV personality, but people probably are familiar with him quite because he does a lot of cases about wrongful convictions. He investigates them. He told me that he believes about 30% of people in prison in Michigan from Wayne County are innocent. And he added later, which I don't necessarily all the time talk about, but he said during the period of the Ring of Snitches, he thinks it may be as high as 80% of the people that were convicted during that time. Mm-hmm. And Kim Worthy in the Conviction Integrity Unit, in Willie Merriweather's case, that's one of the things that he's furious about. Because when it came out about David Pouch and Donald Steiwitz, both Kim Worthy and the previous James Craig said, well, we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to make sure there's nobody else in prison now that was whose case they were involved in. That never happened. And so he's been campaigning since then. The Conviction Integrity Unit has had his case since 2018, Mr. Merriweather's case. And every time that he's inquired about it, Valerie Newman has told him, well, we haven't even gotten around to investigating it yet. He talks about in the story, he talks about how he was giving a deposition with Valerie Newman about the case of Raymond Gray, one of the people that got exonerated. He wasn't, I'm sorry, that was a misstatement. He was released after he pled guilty to second-degree murder to a crime that he was not even present for. The actual killer said he was not there. Other witnesses said he was not there. But that's the only thing that Valerie Newman and Kim Worthy would allow him to do in order to get out after he'd been in there almost 50 years. A noted artist. People know Ray Gray, but Mr. Merriweather was, because he knew Ray Gray, and he was giving a deposition as a witness in that case. And he talked to Valerie Newman then. And she told him again, look, you're just going to have to wait. That's the Conviction Integrity Unit does that to hundreds of people. I think they say they got 1,400 people right now whose applications they're reviewing. Yeah, they've been waiting a very long time, and most of them are going to continue to wait.
My thing is, after 31 people, let's say 35 people, been exonerated, not one person is held responsible.
Exactly.
Even in Michigan, they have had, Michigan has been behind Cook County in exonerations for the last few years. Out of all these exonerations, and it's been almost maybe close to 200 so far in Michigan. Nobody in Michigan has been held accountable for these exonerations. It's nobody's fault. You're just letting people go. I'm sorry, and just let them go. Dwayne, yeah. I know you have something to say up there, but it's just nobody is being held accountable, but people are in prison like Dwayne, 35 years. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, this Detroit sounds like Cleveland, New York, Chicago. It all sounds the same to me. Mm-hmm. This is going on everywhere in this country. The county that I was convicted in is not even the largest county in Ohio, but it has over double the amount of exonerations in the state. Over double, with the whole state combined. All the 88 counties combined, this one county has over double the amount of wrongful convictions in the state. So this sounds like Detroit. It sounds so familiar to me. And a girl put on the bottom of the screen earlier, these corrupt police officers, they're taking their part of the blame. Well, we're giving them their part of the blame. But they ain't taking none. Everybody's getting away with everything they do. All the corruption they do, all the underhanded breaking the law. They break the law every day. Mm-hmm. This is what people don't understand. They break the law. And it's accepted by the prosecutors and the judges, black judges included. It goes all the way up the ladder, because when these cases come across these officials' desk, they know that the cases ain't right. They got law degrees. They've been practicing law for decades. They know that stuff ain't right, but they still allow it. They allow it to come right across their desk. They sit there on their podium and act like they don't see it, act like the person is getting a fair trial, and they know. So, the police officers deserve all the blame that they're getting, but so do the prosecutors and so do the judges.
That's right.
Because any case that there's a wrongful conviction, there's that you are finding guilty an innocent person, somebody that didn't do the crime. Mm-hmm. And anytime that happens, they all know it.
Sure, the prosecutor knows too, and they're complicit.
And the judge knows it too. Mm-hmm. They all know it. They know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They use cases, obscure cases that they know is bad law. Like in my case, my case is a controlling case in Ohio, State versus Dwayne Brooks, because they got some illegal, underhanded stuff off on me in my trial. They read somebody's testimony from a previous trial to my jury after this man had took the Fifth Amendment. He pled the Fifth, wouldn't testify. So now they're reading this stuff into the record as if, It's the God's honest
Oh
truth,
my God.
but we can't even cross-examine it. Can't cross-examine a statement. So they used my case because they got it off on me all the way up into 2023 to bank other guys. Like, well, Your Honor, in State versus Brooks, the court allowed it. And it's called bad law. It's called bad law. Once the appeals court don't overturn on these issues, they call it harmless error, as Attorney Mack was saying last week or the week before. They call it harmless error. Once they don't overturn on these issues, it becomes bad law. And they know it's bad law because it's against the law. So they're all in cahoots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even now, you know, the evidence is out there. Anybody that can read, you know, if you read Braille, you could understand that I didn't do the crime. I'm still being treated like a criminal. House arrest, GPS monitoring. For what? You know I didn't do it. But it just continues. So I don't know if after facing the death penalty for a crime that they knew that I didn't do, and going through all that I've been through the 35 years of incarceration, wrongful incarceration, I don't know if they think that now having me on house arrest with a GPS monitor is going to break me. Maybe they're hoping I get hit by a bus. I don't know what their hope is. But this is going on Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, New York, all over the United States, Los Angeles, anywhere you can name.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big problem. The people need to know this. These guys, you know, you were breaking up. Everybody was breaking up, so I was only getting what I could get out of it. But you know, these guys got a hard road to travel because you know, we got all of this stuff. They was here, they was there, they was in this, they was in that. You know, they convicted me. I wasn't even there. I wasn't even in the state. So you know, I feel really bad for these guys, you know, because they got an uphill battle. I wasn't even in the state. They convicted me, tried to give me the death penalty.
So, we've been talking about, you know, how often these things happen, and even on video. I want to show a couple of videos to our viewers, because this is, you know, we've been talking about the young man and Warren, but there's another young lady as well, and I want to show this video.
I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Another day, another lawsuit against the Warren Police Department. A woman now claims that she was brutally beaten by officers during an encounter back in April that was all caught on camera. CBS News Detroit's Andres Gutierrez has that video from the attorney's office in Southfield.
I don't understand how noise disturbance escalates to assault.
Jewel Banks says back on April 2nd, all she was doing was waiting for her girlfriend and cousins when Warren police walked up to her car claiming they were investigating a noise complaint.
I was confused on what was going on because I wasn't committing a crime. It wasn't like it was a traffic stop or anything. I was just resting my eyes in my vehicle in front of my family's house.
Officers yanked Jewel out of the car after her foot accidentally hit the gas pedal, causing the engine to rev. It wasn't long before she ends up on the ground.
They tried to break my arm. One of the two it was two officers tried to break my arm. So it was dislocated elbow. I have some torn ligaments in my shoulder and the concussion.
These are the injuries Jewel says doctors treated at a hospital the officers dropped her off at.
After it happened, I had to help her remember things constantly, daily. I had to record her sleep because she's jumping in her sleep. Don't know if she's having seizures. So it's been kind of rough.
Jewel was ready to put the incident behind her, but when this video surfaced of a now fired Warren police officer punching and beating a 19-year-old man, she decided to speak up.
That's a culture of abuse and disrespect to the community, disrespect to the people who they're supposed to be policing, and disrespect to the badge.
All Warren Police Commissioner Bill Dwyer told CBS News Detroit regarding these allegations is that Jewel is a wanted woman with 5 arrest warrants stemming from the April 2nd incident.
At this point in time, there's nobody that these Warren police officers can pull over and approach and feel like they're going to be treated in a safe, secure manner. You can't feel safe with these thugs.
Mr. Fortner is also seeking $50 million in damages for his client. They hope the number will compel a change in the department's culture. Andres Gutierrez, CBS News, Detroit.
And then here's another one from last year.
For the first time, we're seeing body cam video of Tyler Wade arrested by Warren police back in June. Several officers surround Wade's car with guns drawn. Moments later, the 17-year-old is pulled from the vehicle and dragged to the ground. Then, the video shows officers punch and kick Wade over and over and over. Attorneys say Wade was punched more than 9 times. The body cam was so difficult to watch, it made Wade and his mom emotional.
Just that he had to go through that. Just that 4 or 5 grown men are around you, and you don't know what's gonna happen to you. You don't know if this is the last time you're gonna see your mom, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, the ones you love, because the person that's supposed to protect you is the ones hurting you.
Since the whole situation, I really been like traumatized. Like, I'm just scared to go places and stuff. Like, I don't even like leaving the house anymore, to be honest. Like, I don't leave the house. I'm like scared of police.
Wade's attorneys from the Cochran firm also shared body cam video of an officer downplaying how Wade got his facial injuries to a first responder, blaming it on the teen hitting the ground.
These officers not only refused to admit what they did on the scene, as you've seen in this video, but absolutely no one has contacted Tyler Wade or his family and offered or issued any type of an apology. We expect more.
Tyler Wade's list of injuries include a concussion, PTSD, and ruptured blood vessel in one eye, which may lead to permanent vision loss. Managing attorney James King says they filed a civil lawsuit against Warren Police Department. 3 months ago, Fox 2 shared this cell phone video of the violent arrest shot by an onlooker. At the time, police charged Wade with felony charges including fleeing police, weapons, and drug violations. Wade has since pleaded no contest. Back in June, Warren Police Commissioner Bill Dwyer said an internal affairs review led to a lengthy suspension for one officer involved in the incident. We asked Wade's attorneys about that punishment.
It's enraging, right? And the reason being is, at that point in time, we were left to hope that the police would police themselves and that this matter would be handled the way it should.
For Wade's attorneys, justice is getting all those officers involved off the force. They are also looking for monetary compensation for up to $20 million. In the meantime, Warren Police will not comment on this until they receive and review that federal lawsuit. In Detroit, I'm Brandon Hudson, Fox 2 News.
So, go ahead. Attorney David Robinson.
The fact that, you know, the 3 videos that you showed, the cops are doing the exact same thing. So that has to be a consequence of their culture. They are all doing, these are all different situations, but they're doing the exact same thing. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's the training that they get. They are scared, and it is a fear that they use to promote their own aggressiveness. And then the police department, in looking at those videos, is going to still side with, you know, the police officer. That is the nature of the training that they get. It is an us against them society. And that's exactly what it is that we're seeing. You know, this is not a coincidence.
That's why, these police commissioners across the country, when your officer, you're a police captain, commissioner, whatever you may have, you the leader of that police department in all of these cities, and they should be held more accountable than anybody, because if I'm a police commissioner in any city or any town, and an officer of mine beats up a woman or a child or shoots an unarmed person, as a police commissioner, I'm saying to myself, I can't have him on my force because his judgment is bad. How do you shoot an unarmed person and say, oh, I thought my life was in danger? Well, I'm a police commissioner and your judgment is bad. I don't want you on my force. Whatever happens through the legal system, you're fired. Go through whatever, the union and all of that stuff. But as a police commissioner, as a police chief, I got to fire you because your judgment is bad. You shot an unarmed person. Y'all beat up a woman. This ain't no 300-pound man, no 250-pound man. I'll use all that force on a woman, and then the last one was all of that force on the child.
Mm-hmm.
So these police captains, commissioners, chiefs, they're to blame more so than anybody, because they don't even discipline their officers. Blue wall or whatever you want to call it, it's ridiculous.
Even in our circuit, in the Sixth Circuit.
Go ahead, Mr. Robinson. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in the Sixth Circuit, these conservative opinions that come out by these judges will side with a police officer, even when the police officer simply says that I thought the person was armed, or I feared for my life because I believed the person was armed. You don't find a gun. I mean, that's how far-fetched the whole thing is. And a cop could be making, or likely is making it up, to save his own butt. He'll say, and they get the assistance.
And it just goes further to prove that he got bad judgment.
Yeah, and it's worse because when they make their report, they're doing so with the assistance of a union lawyer. So it's like the lawyer is putting all this. Cops, if you read these reports, poets, they really aren't. Lawyers become the author of the reports, and when you read the reports, it's all this fantastic language in it that the average cop wouldn't even know, those words. It's like talismanic language, and those words of justification become sort of etched in stone, and that creates the narrative. And if you buy into the narrative, you bought into some bullshit. Never ever buy into that narrative. They get away with it, and again, the courts protect them. They protect them with this qualified immunity thing that has gone way, way, way out to the right. And that shit ain't never going anywhere. Not with the current makeup of the Supreme Court. Qualified immunity has gotten more cops off, than any other thing. Seriously.
In a just world, the cop that sends somebody, when a cop kills somebody, you can't really get justice against him because that person has been killed. Now, but when a cop sends somebody, takes somebody's life by sending them to prison for 40 and 50 years, in a just world, wouldn't that cop be subjected to the same penalty? Shouldn't that cop be subjected to that and go to prison for the ones that they killed too? It doesn't happen.
See, and if they're charged criminally, the same report that I'm talking about that has fostered this lie will be their defense. And that scares prosecutors because a cop's lie
can go, it can live and grow legs and wings and go forever. That's the whole point. And that's prosecutors are afraid of that because they can lose the case. And then politically, if you're an elected official, you have to be concerned about that. And that's where this other impediment is coming in, because you don't have strong, courageous prosecutors, or prosecutors that cannot think outside of the box that police officers put them in.
Attorney Mack?
I really don't have anything else to add. These people have said everything I've lived for 4 decades in this profession. It saddens my heart to see how universal this is. It saddens my heart, but I'm sitting here spiritually not becoming discouraged, because if we stop talking and fighting, they win. And so the thing of it is, a man by the name of Carlyle once said, "No lie can live forever." Okay, and so there are a lot of people that have paid the ultimate price. In the Civil War, Lincoln referred to those patriots as people who gave the last full measure of devotion. Okay, the last full measure of devotion. Those people supposedly were fighting to preserve the Union, and hundreds of thousands of people have died equally to try to preserve what the country is supposed to be about, And so, when I look at Memorial Day and Veterans Day, that has different meaning for me, because the people, in addition to them people who fought, in wars for the country and all that, I give them utmost respect. But man, oh man, graveyards that are full of people that I know. And it breaks my heart just listening to this, because it makes me remember men that I left back in the penitentiary. A lot of them have died, that I would put my very life on. Those men were not guilty. Those men were not guilty, and they died, and they died, so, I just say I'm gonna keep fighting, even in my tiredest moments, like Jesse said, if you stand up, he'll fall off your back. So I got to, at my age, learn to try to keep my back straight, and my mind straight, and y'all have been encouraging to me tonight, because I needed to hear y'all tonight. I really did.
Yeah. I was talking to one of the exonerees today in a case that I'm not going to name him, but he was one of the more political exonerees. And while he was in prison, he studied international politics. He says, what's happening now is the whole system is getting away with cheating everybody. But what he said about young people and people in general right now is that there's no Angela Davises here. There's no Amilcar Cabral. There's no people to teach people about the depth of this entire system. About the capitalist system is what it comes down to. That's built on the backs of slaves, built on the backs of mass incarceration, all of that. And even though right now, when I started out in the movement, it was as a revolutionary to turn that system over. Even though that hasn't happened and may not happen immediately, just having that consciousness now gives perspective to young people, if they would have that consciousness, as to what's going on, so that they aren't out there in the streets killing each other. And it's unfortunate, COINTELPRO and the government made quick work, destroyed the Black Panthers, other people that had the real analysis of what's happening in this system. They're not in the same capacity now. They're not a mass movement as they were in the 60s and later. But just to have that consciousness, the young people need to know what's going on is intricately involved with the system that produced it.
I think on some level they're getting it because, they're putting it, a lot of young people are putting this stuff out there on different platforms.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of that going on. TikTok, a lot of TikTok, stuff going on when they're talking about these wrongful convictions and police brutality and corruption and stuff. But I think I agree that what you're saying about this, we need more educators, more people who are a part of the movement to fuel the younger people, because some of us are just stagnant on it, and we can show these videos. I mean, I have more videos. We can show these videos, but if you are not engaged, because some people just don't want to see it, they just don't want to be involved until it happens to them. And then they're calling attorney David Robinson, or they're calling attorney Hugo Mack, or they're calling you, Diane, to write the stories. We're trying to be proactive. That's why we're here having these conversations, because we want to be proactive. Not only do we want you to know what's going on, we want to also have conversations about how we protect ourselves, those things that we need to be doing and engaging, not only as adults, but also as our little kids, because even children are being violated. Elementary school kids are being arrested and pulled out and dragged out of these schools for, it's going on every day. And so we have to tell these stories. We have to get more engaged. I agree that there are no Angela Davises, but we need to raise some, or we just need to start being more engaged, because the more we turn our backs to it, or we watch this on 6:00 and we don't say anything or don't do anything, the cycle continues. I saw in the feed, Mr. Hakeem, he was saying about qualified immunity, and David Robinson, he touched on it as well. But now that it happened in Oxford, the shooting in Oxford is bringing up loud qualified immunity, because now a different, group of people are finding out that it's not going to work for them. All the teachers and administrators at that school that just overlooked this young man, his issues, and now they're seeing, hey, this qualified immunity is a thing. So, I think we just still need to continue to educate and continue to advocate. The things that you're doing, Miss Diane, is very important. Attorney Robinson, and keeping these books out here and pushing, the conversation with Dwayne Brooks, because until people, we don't want it to happen to you. We want to avoid, what happened to Mr. Merriweather. That's it. How many years now?
Almost, I think it's close to 60 now. No, it's close to 50 for him.
50 years. Dwayne, 35 years. My son was there 2 years, but now, he's gone now, and so these things, we're trying to be more proactive than, reactive, so we won't see our daughters being stumped in the street by all these police officers.
One of the things that we here in Detroit seem to be missing is a strong contingent, religious leader contingent that could be the voice for the voiceless. You hear in New York and in Minnesota, where these other killings are, you have religious leaders that aren't politically connected or aren't concerned with the politics, and they come out as advocates. I think that is one of the things that seriously is missing, in this city. Because we see the results that Al Sharpton, seems to get with the
his National Action Network, when he speaks about all of these black and brown people that have been murdered by the police. But where are the religious leaders when Michael Adams, was shot in the back, at the drag races?
Mm-hmm.
We were on the news. We did press conferences, but no religious leader ever stepped up.
They are police chaplains.
Yeah. I mean, so that's messed up.
Right. You're right. They're all police chaplains. You see them, they are with the police. They're not they're not standing with the people, but you see them all in uniforms when something happened to an officer.
Yeah, but they're wanting their tithings every Sunday.
So Dwayne, do you have something to say, to add?
Yeah, in closing, people have to stay focused on something. We get so distracted. People are so easily distracted. We out here, as a whole, I'm not saying us individually, but we out here as a whole, we worshiping and celebrating these celebrities and these athletes and these actors. And, it's crazy, and these top athletes in the NBA, NFL, top rappers, the top ones. I'm not gonna say their names. Y'all know who their names. Y'all know who y'all idolizing. They worshiping the devil. All these signs and symbols they be throwing up all you got to do is do the research. Just catch a picture of them when they throwing they signals, signs and stuff up, and research, and it'll tell you who they worship. And we out here worshiping them. While all of this craziness is going on, all this injustice is going on, all of this tragedy and these catastrophes are going on, we distracted because we worshiping these athletes and these actors and these celebrities and these YouTubers and TikTokers or whoever the hell else. It's ridiculous. And this is why this type of stuff keeps happening. Because we'll protest for a week or two and we're distracted. We're totally unfocused now. I've been out 2.5 months. Ain't nobody talking about what they did to me no more. And this is the same thing that keeps happening over and over again. Black Lives Matter. Where's that at now?
Yeah.
Right. It's true.
It keeps happening over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And the people that's in authority, they know all they got to do is just we'll just let them blow smoke for a couple of weeks. It'll be over with. They'll disperse. They'll forget about it. They'll go away, and we can keep on operating as we always do. And this is why these things keep happening, because we won't come together and hold them accountable, because we can.
Mm-hmm.
We are a people that war has been raged on, and we acting like we don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
We walking around this country acting like we don't even know that there's a war going on against us. We spend damn near 100% of our money, 90-some% of our money, right back with them. And they hate us. These brands and these labels, and they Tommy Hilfiger and Timberland and whoever the hell else, they'll say it publicly. Or we don't make our attire for black people. And we still rush to go buy their stuff, instead of rushing to own a house, rushing to get out of debt, rushing to own what you own instead of paying on it. That's a liability. Anything you paying on, it's a liability. We already behind the 8 ball. We are 400 and some years behind the 8 ball. The way that this is going, we'll never catch up. And that's the way it's designed. If there was a Black Wall Street or Rosewood, any semblance of success for our kind, it was destroyed, burned, and the people were killed. They ain't letting us catch up. They don't just take their foot off our neck. They don't just one day wake up and be, oh, you know what? We got to stop treating these people like this. That's not going to happen. So we better wake up. Justice for Gerard and all the Gerards around the country.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Diane?
Yes, I certainly agree with that sentiment. There's, one of the slogans that was on signs at the rally outside of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, Frank Murphy, in 2021. And I use a picture of two little girls that are the nieces of another woman that's in prison. I'm sorry. Anyway, the sign says, free them all. Free them all. That's what it comes down to. You can't pick and choose in this system, because this system has no right to mass incarcerate people. I don't care if they're guilty or innocent. It has no right to sentence people to life in prison, meaning death in prison. No other country in the world sentences people to life without parole and never gives them a chance to redeem themselves. Most countries, at least after 10 or 15 years, will review that sentence. This country is vicious. It has 5% of the world's population and 25% of its incarcerated population.
It's a sad state of affairs. You hear Merrick Garland say that nobody is above the law. You know what? That's been disproven by Trump, because despite the fact that he has not gotten convicted of anything, he definitely has demonstrated the manner in which, the prosecutorial authorities have treated him, that he is above the law. There's nobody else on the friggin' planet that could have gotten away with this, with what he has gotten away with. I mean, a fraction of what he has gotten away with. So there are clearly two different systems of justice, in our country. If our president, Barack Obama, had gotten violated for overtime parking, he would have been impeached. Seriously. So, I mean, and if people cannot see the dire significance of how that, I think people think, well, that really doesn't affect me. Well, it does affect you. It affects you directly, but you can't see it. It's like, okay, you don't want to read up on it. You don't want to study up on it. You're electing people to office that are your enemies, because you're doing it because the name is familiar to you and you didn't do your homework about, who's good and who's not good. Come on. Let's get it together.
Yeah. Yeah, even when you don't vote, you voting,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So you are electing your enemy, even if you don't vote. So you're right, Attorney Robinson. So we have to, everything we talked about affects everybody, right? Because people who are wrongfully convicted, even, they're going to prison, your tax-paying dollars is paying that. When they're exonerated, your tax-paying dollars is paying that. The city, the citizens of that city or county is paying those fees. When these people continue to shoot people and there's all these lawsuits and police brutality lawsuits, your tax dollars is paying for that. You're paying for it. It affects you. It might not be affecting you, somebody personally in your home, but it's affecting your pockets in the long run. So these to sit back and not do nothing or act like this is not your problem, it is all of our problem. It's all of our problem. So if you guys don't have anything else, any last things to say, Diane, do you have any last things you want to add before we go?
No, I think a lot has already been said. I think, Jay, I thank you for having this program and the organizing that you're doing, because it is giving a platform for people to get the word out there about what's really happening. And I know that's taken a toll on you, losing your son. And also, I know you said you were quite sick sometime a few weeks ago. So I know that's a hard battle to continue. It's hard for all of us. And certainly, Mr. Brooks, I would like to talk to you sometime later and get the story of your case. And, I suspect it's probably already out there in the media, so I'm going to look.
I'll connect you and Dwayne. Make sure you guys get connected. Attorney Mack, do you have anything?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, no, Dwayne, I said I was
give him my number.
Okay. Attorney Matt.
Thank you.
I don't know if Attorney Mack froze or not. Attorney Robinson, do you have anything you want?
Yeah, I just again appreciate your platform, J Love, and I am inspired by everybody who has been a participant in today's podcast. The truth was spoken, and I hope that God continues to bless and keep each of us strong advocates in the fight for justice, because it will not happen on its own. You have to force it. So God bless each of us.
Yes, and as soon as your podcast come out, please make sure you let us know so we can be putting it out there and watching. We can't wait. And also, you guys, I need you guys, if you haven't yet gotten the book, get the book, Attorney David Robinson's book. You see a hero, I see a human beings on Amazon. Make sure you check it out. If you miss Amazon days, it's okay. You can still get it. I'm gonna get to you in a minute, Ms. Attorney Matt. Diane, she writes these awesome articles. The Voice of Detroit, you can donate by going to www.voiceofdetroit.net. To donate, this platform is very informational and we need to keep it alive. So you guys make sure you go there to donate. Attorney Matt, do you have something to leave us with?
The words of William Cullen Bryant: truth crushed to earth will rise again.
Hello.
And it's rising in all of y'all right here on this show.
Hello.
It's rising again.
Yes.
God bless you.
Thank you, Attorney Matt. Thank you, Dwayne, Diane. I know I'm going to see you again. I hope to see you again too, Attorney Robinson. Thank you guys for joining us. I want to also leave you with this: the Final Push Project, Clemency for Susan Brown. We're supporting Susan Brown for clemency. You can go to her link tree at Clemency for Susan Brown to find all about her story. And if you want to support, there is links in there for you to support. her for this push for clemency. Also, just thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next Friday on Turning a Moment into a Movement. Thank you.
Stay blessed.